Now, I think that we're probably expecting as many as 12 students attending today, and I can see that we have about 5 already, so we might just wait a little longer. But welcome to everybody who's already in. Thank you. We'll wait for just a little longer before we make a start.
Hi.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for coming. We're about to make a start. We're just waiting for a few more attendees. I think we had 6 and we've dropped back to 5. So hopefully that's just a connection issue and that person will come back.
Not a problem. I think it's connection issues all day because the computers have just been going a little bit gaga.
Yeah, I don't know about anybody else, but you just have those days where internet just doesn't want to play.
I'm looking straight at Gene because as a designer, I know that he has the capabilities to fix these things. Fix my Mac.
Stop, I can't even remember to turn off the unmute button. So.
Let alone fix the internet.
He can reverse the mainframe and, reconfigure everything behind the scenes.
You've been watching way too much Star Trek.
Do you love it? Thank you.
I so love it.
Tracy's having trouble getting in. Does it matter if she can't get in?
Hope holds the key. Hope. You're on mute. I can't hear you.
I'll send Tracy an email.
Thank you. Yes, we're certainly outnumbering attendees at the moment, staff and panelists. What do you think, everyone? Shall we start at 3:35 regardless?
Sure.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, that's just ticked over actually on my computer. So here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to today's presentation by esteemed members of staff from the Monash University Faculty of Art, Design and Architecture. My name is Anita Blom and I'm the Manager of Student Experience and Inclusion. And I'd like to begin today's session by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of this land. I pay respect to the elders past and present of the Kulin Nation, and I extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians who may be here today. Monash Art, Design and Architecture is a vibrant and dynamic centre for excellence in teaching and research in the creative disciplines, featuring the departments of Fine Art, Architecture and Design. Students in Fine Art can choose to study a Bachelor of Fine Art, Bachelor of Art History and Curating or Visual Arts, specialising in one of the many studio disciplines. Our Department of Architecture offers programs at undergraduate and postgraduate level in architecture, in addition to studies in urban planning and design, whilst those of you with an interest in design at undergraduate level can choose to major in industrial design, spatial design or communication design, or if you want to develop skills across disciplines, you can choose to study towards a degree in collaborative design. There are also many possibilities to combine our degrees with others to complete a double degree qualification. So today you'll be hearing from 2 of our dynamic and experienced academic staff members from the disciplines of architecture and design. Jackie Alexander is a senior lecturer and the director of architectural design practice Alexander Sheridan Architecture. She'll talk through her broad professional experience in architecture, art practice, teaching, research and design criticism. Jackie will provide an overview of the Bachelor of Architecture program and provide insights into what to expect as a student in first year of the architecture program. Associate Professor Jean Borden is the head of the Department of Design, giving us a wave, thanks Jean, at Art, Design and Architecture. And he has over 25 years experience as a communication designer and design educator. At Monash University, Jean has played central roles in design education and course development and was instrumental in reshaping the Bachelor of Design program, in addition to shaping and driving key research hubs which contribute much to the research profile of our faculty. Please, everyone, save your questions until the end of today's presentation, as there will be a question and answer session that will follow. You'll also hear from Muffy students who chose Monash after studying in your program. So it's been my absolutely fantastic pleasure to work with both Jackie and Jean for many years in my role supporting students at Monash Art, Design and Architecture. And I'd now like to welcome Jean, who will speak to you about design at Monash. Thanks, Jean.
Thanks so much, Anita, and particularly for that very grand introduction. That was great. I'm about to share my screen and and thank you so much for everyone for coming out on a Friday afternoon. So what I'd like to take you through today is essentially design at Monash, but what each of the years hold for you, but essentially also what we stand for. So Monash Design strives to lead, create and encourage a more equitable and sustainable world through all the practices that we actually do as designers. Designers from Monash are transformational agents that can translate ideas into really positive living experiences, and not just for people, but for the planet as well. To take you through just a few kind of examples of work to start with, we began this year where every single person in our design program undertook a one-week project called Anxiety into Action, kind of looking at the fact that design can really be an agent of optimism in a period such as ours that we're in now, where optimism is sort of just a glimmer in the background. So we were really keen for our students to see what they could produce, regardless of whether they were a communication designer, industrial designer, or a spatial designer, to think through how they might be able to promote ideas of equity, of gender equality, of sustainability, of health and well-being in a really simple process of an online exhibition. This exhibition is still up actually, and if you'd like to go and visit it, you can at the MARTA website. So design at Monash is divided into 4 different disciplines, even though there's only 3 represented here at the moment. We have communication design, industrial design, and spatial design. And I'll be going through each of these disciplines in detail later on in the presentation. But we have a 4th pathway as well, and that's called collaborative design. So people who would like to pathway through different studio experiences, whether it's communication, spatial or industrial, they can, and in their final year, undertake a collaborative design studio. To demonstrate what our actual bachelor program looks like over 3 years, I've got here what the program looks like. So the program is exactly the same for all of our students, regardless of the discipline area they do. Everyone comes into a collaborative design studio and learns a whole range of different design practices, processes and thinking, and ways of actually thinking and creating in a design realm. They then, after that, choose their specialisation. And you can see from semesters 1, 2, and across the 3 years, that studio represents quite a large portion of the actual undergraduate degree program. The yellow that you see there is our theory units, and our theory units are really important in terms of helping to support the ideas that are actually generated in studio. You can see here a pink square called for drawing, and drawing is core for all of our disciplines, and because drawing is really a kind of a shorthand, a design shorthand, a way of thinking through ideas before you actually commit to them. So we're really keen that drawing remains a part of our program. But what you see there in purple is all of the elective choices that you get in design. So a third of our electives, a third of our degree is made up of electives, which means that you can actually make a really bespoke streamlined degree program just for you. There's also an optional 4th year honours. You can finish your degree after 3 years, but if you'd like to pursue a really important project or a project that you think you'd like to continue with, you can actually opt to do the 4th year honours. But to try and explain this flexible pathways in our design program, I'll hopefully be able to do it through this diagram. Here you can see all of our design disciplines, so communication design, industrial design, spatial, and collaborative design, which seems to have this big block of nothing missing here. So just to explain how this might actually work if you are entering the Bachelor of Design, you enter without having to choose your discipline area, but you may have an indication that you really want to be a communication designer and you know what you want to do, so you can enter the degree, undertake the collaborative design studio, and then simply do the entire communication design stream of studios. You may come into into the program, do collaborative design, but after being exposed to the different kind of discipline areas, decide that you no longer want to be a communication designer and you'd rather be an industrial designer. You can actually then simply take that pathway. This is the benefit of not having to choose straight away. You may come in and wanting to undertake spatial design, do the first year in spatial design, opt out for a semester and go and do another studio, and then come back and continue a spatial design studio stream. But one of the most exciting options is that you can actually take a pathway through all of the different studios and then finish your degree as a collaborative designer, which means that you've pulled together a whole range of different skills and discipline expertise from across these 3 different specializations to create your own collaborative design program. And I'll go through particular examples of what each of those discipline areas looks like a little later. So what does a designer need? What do you need to come into the program? Well, there's skills and curiosity, but that adds up to the notion of you being able to create ideas. But to expand on that a little more, we teach this. We teach you skills. So the practical skills, the digital skills, the drawing and the research skills, that's our role, is to teach you that. What we're keen to nurture is what you have already, which is a curiosity and an open mind to asking questions of the world and what might design be able to answer, to be able to iterate on ideas and move them forward so you get better and better results, and to see what sort of kind of value systems you can introduce into your design processes. So this notion of curiosity, we're keen to nurture that, and we'd like to have that as a component part of coming into the program. And adding all that up, you get to this idea of being able to create ideas that have purpose and those ideas that facilitate positive change in the world. And sometimes kind of confronting those ideas can be uncomfortable. So this is a project that our students do. It's a consumption audit. And what we ask our students to do in this particular exercise is to retain all their non-biodegradable waste that they've used for a week, and they bring it in. So they save their waste for a week. They then outline themselves, and then they have to locate that waste in whereabouts on the body it predominantly resided. And see, this person was mostly about food. But what's kind of confronting about this project for many of our students is not just that this is the amount of waste that one person produced in that week, but if you search through all of that, there's so many designed objects, from the milk carton to the egg carton to all of that packaging that you see in there are actually the products of designers. And these are the sorts of issues that we need to confront as designers moving forward in the world. So to look at our different discipline areas, communication design or graphic design or visual communication, you may have heard of various different ways that it's been represented. But communication design for us is a really, more broadly speaking, a way that designers communicate with the world through a whole range of different media. For example, just typography on a t-shirt is a representation of the way that a communication designer might work. So this is work by James Meadowcroft, and this is him questioning the notion of why people sign up to Facebook. This is another one of James's projects where he looked at how, through a publication design, a very beautiful, seductively beautiful publication design, might actually start to question climate change and climate denial and what will our world look like in 2036 if we don't make change. James was actually shortlisted for the Design Institute of Australia Graduate of the Year Award this year, and we'll know in a month's time whether he was successful. And this particular project is looking at the way we can engage technologies in new and interesting ways and to kind of disrupt what we consider the normative kind of behaviour. So this is a DJ table in the Docklands Library, which is really about questioning what library spaces are now. They're no longer these quiet sort of spaces that people go in to read. They're much more interactive community spaces. So all the people that came into the library could actually disrupt the space with noise and sound. There's a visual culture that's attached to communication design too, and here we see the work of Lucy Russell and Antje Sparks, who created a whole range of illustrations for the Monash FODMAP app launch that came out of Monash Health Sciences, and they launched this program in Las Vegas in 2016, and these are huge kind of illustrative panels that promoted the launch of the app. We're also very keen to kind of question some of our processes and practices. So this is looking at a packaging unit where unless the packaging had purpose, then it had to be questioned as to whether it should exist. So on the left-hand side, we have The Urban Wanderer by Ashley McVie, who was looking at how packaging might actually address social justice. So within inside this pack is a whole range of, like there's a map that indicates where people who are homeless might be able to seek refuge. It has toothpaste and toothbrushes and care needs that get replenished and then repurposed into this reusable bag. Damien's light packaging here is completely nothing gets thrown away. So the light is concealed within the cardboard box, but the cardboard box itself becomes the actual light fitting for the light inside. So nothing of this package gets thrown out. It becomes a part of the aesthetic of someone's home. We also do motion design, and I'll be able to share this PDF with you later. And if you click on the actual image, you'll see there's a Vimeo link. And this is a video and an award-winning video from the Australian Graphic Design Association Awards in 2018, won by Zoe Hugh. And it's a beautifully designed music video. Industrial design is a far more kind of three-dimensional approach to design, but also connected with services and also in that notion of purpose as well. You can see here, this is a chair design by Henny, where the same chair design is functioning both as an adult's chair and flipped sideways, it becomes a child's chair. Henny lived in Hong Kong and was really alert to the restrictions in terms of space, and she wanted to furniture that address the notion of duality, what multiple purposes it might actually have. In terms of the maker spaces that Monash have, the industrial designers have some pretty unique experiences in terms of being able to use the automotive clay modelling studio that you see here, but we also have an extensive fab lab where 3D printers and laser cutters and robots are all able to be used by the students as well. Because what's important is for our graduates that they're able to create these three-dimensional, not necessarily functioning, but user-testable prototypes for their ideas. And you can see here Caitlin's project, which is looking at the way we might actually have a future of blood transfusion that is not just about the product itself that extracts the blood, but is connected to an entire operating system that reminds people when their next appointment should be. And in terms of like the environmental sustainability of our practices, this is an extraordinary project by an alumni of ours, Alex Goad. This is the Mars Reef project that he began as a fourth year honours year student, and he has now made this into an internationally renowned career choice. Design Reef Lab, or Reef Design Lab rather, is his company and can be found on the internet. And he's been introducing ways in which three-dimensional design can actually revitalise reefs and river systems and waterways throughout Australia and the rest of the world. Similarly with Rowan, this is a project that he won the Graduate of the Year award a couple of years ago, but this is a project that captures all of the litter that gets swept into the waterways so that it can be then scooped back out. So rather than kind of floating away and collecting further downstream. Eventually, these units become completely overgrown, so they become part of the environment. Amy Killen's Thermal Life project, again, is looking at, really specific problems in the world. And this one, she went to the World Health Organization and actually examined what issues they're dealing with. And one of the things that she found was that blood transfusions in remote areas of Australia or Africa or any place where blood has to travel for long periods of time often cannot be used once it arrives there because the conditions of the environment prevents it from being able to be used. So this particular box won the Dyson Award, Student Award, in 2016 as well. And it preserves the blood for extended periods of time into those really remote areas. And it's also incredibly inexpensive to produce. Amy is also now a sessional staff member with us and teaches into our program. Spatial design is is more than interior design, but can include interiors. But what we're really keen on in terms of our spatial design program is to look at how spaces are not just inside, they're also outside, they're public and they're private, but they're also virtual. So there's a whole range of spaces that we're engaging with now that designers have to be alert to and able to create for. So this is an example of an exterior project, and you can see the overpass here. And these are bamboo tubes that are hanging. And so this is kind of a Zen garden. So it's looking at spaces that are generally considered either unsafe or unwelcoming, like the ones that are under bridges, that can be repurposed and reused and made publicly available. And not only is it beautiful, but audible as well. So there's sound and a whole range of different sensory experiences that come into a spatial design practice. Another example of where there's that combination of inside and out, where these are speculative designs for Heidi Gallery, for new pavilions for the artwork. So there's a genuine sense of that blurring between exterior and interior space. These are speculative projects again, and completed by our first years in the spatial design program quite recently. So their project was that they were given a beach hut on Brighton Beach, and to really reconsider what it might be if an artist lived in there. So Gemma's created the beach hut for the visual artist Nick Cave, as opposed to the singer Nick Cave. But it's also not looking at just what's good for human experiences, but potentially what's also good for other living beings in the world. So this is a project called Creature Spaces, and this is Vanessa Attica's sound wave home for the Australian wood duck. So this beautiful form here is the kind of potential nesting area for the wood duck. And similarly, Eva has created this phenomenal urban landscaped piece in between the railway bridges in Richmond to create a nesting space for the Australian currawong. And what's important too is that spatial design, as I said before, is not just about the object or the space that is kind of designed with things, it's about the atmospheres that are created within spaces too. So this is a project that was, it's called Fleeting Spaces, so spaces that change and don't necessarily exist for long periods of time, that can be created with shadows and with movement. And these projects were completely completed last semester during lockdown. So students did an amazing job. And again, this is a video. So if you get a chance to download the PDF, then just click on the link and you'll be able to see the entire video. And we also have some extraordinary staff who work with us. So Gunther Chua has produced this piece of artwork. It's a spatial experience, but it doesn't exist with physical form. So it's you can see the little dots under here, and fog is actually pushed through those holes in the floor to create these different spatial experiences of the object, but it is nebulous and formless. So really challenging what we believe spatial design is or should be. In terms of collaborative design, where we can see that we're kind of bringing together all these different discipline areas, we can see that at work in numerous ways, and increasingly designers are working with a whole range of different people with different skill sets. So here we can see a graphic designer working with a spatial designer, looking at how data can be visualized on a wall, and all of this content here is also digitally interactive as well and interacts with a website. This particular project is one that we have recurring, so we're in our 3rd year of the OI Glass project, and OI Glass is the world's largest glass company, and they come to us with a particular environmental and health challenge each year. So what they were doing with this particular project, which is called the Milli Bottle, is that they wanted to create a bottle that only allowed enough juice for 2 serves of juice a day, because people essentially drink too much fruit juice. So this is the exact amount that you should be drinking. And so this was done with industrial designers, communication designers, and a spatial designer was indeed involved in this as well. But it's not just other designers that collaborative designers work with. They work with members of the public, with organisational management, and this is a project here, a stakeholder mapping project done with managerial people rather than who, we're intent on extracting their creative side as well. And it's really important that collaborative designers, or designers in general, actually embrace the notion of designing with. So designing with people so that their needs and their aspirations are genuinely kind of met by designing with them. And this is a project that looked at how harassment in cities could actually be reduced, and bringing people in who actually have ideas because they experience that sort of harassment in the city. To take you through just the last few slides, the Year 1 Collaborative Design Studio really starts that journey of thinking through design for purpose. And there's 2 major projects that they undertake: People and Climate, a Place and Atmosphere. And I'll take you through a few examples of the People and Climate projects. So they were asked to kind of really consider, like they were in the Anxiety into Action project, to think about a particular issue that they thought design could confront. And with this one, Zoe Ray has created a wearable. So these projects were intended to be worn. And you can see here, this is a swimsuit that replicates the bleaching impact of pH levels on coral through the swimsuit. So it's a really visceral and visible indicator that this is what's happening to our coral reefs in a kind of personalised and wearable way. And there's some of her project kind of sketches and drawings and prototypes and influences and her processes that she undertook. And all of these were uploaded to Instagram to share with each other and essentially the world as well. So you can see there's a whole range of different projects. I won't take you through each of them, but a wearable project that really confronted particular issues in the world. And this is essentially Alicia looking at Greta Thunberg's call to action for climate change. Adele looking at the way that plastic rubbish can be repurposed and reconsidered into a fashionable item, including parka. And some of them are a little more ethereal. This is looking at the melting, sort of essentially the melting ice caps and how that might actually be visibly and creatively displayed. So Vivian has actually frozen soles of ice onto her shoes and then photographed the process of them melting. Gitika has looked at not just the practices of a wearable, but how there are so many industries in the world that use really cheap labour to create their quite expensive fashion items. And John is the last project I'll show, was really kind of examining how it felt to be a person in lockdown during COVID at the beginning of this pandemic. And he's created a range of kind of creative, expressive pieces that are worn and then photographed. And they're his working drawings as well. If you'd like to see more, there's over 12,000 of these images on our Instagram. So if you just open your Instagram and hashtag COL1001, you'll find over 12,000 of those entries from our students. So there's an amazing amount of work that was produced in semester 1. And if you'd like to actually see more, we have a weekly publication that we've produced from the beginning of this year called Squirrel, and it has multiple examples of student work, of staff work, of different experiences that the students undertake at Monash. And you can, again, when you get the PDF, simply click on the image and it will take you there, or that's the address there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and see how I did. There, I can hand it back now. Thanks, Anita. You're on mute, Anita.
Sorry, everybody. I've been in the faculty for a very long time, but I never...
You're on mute again, Anita.
Sorry, I'm not sure why that keeps happening. My apologies. Look, I'll hand over to the next speaker. Thank you very much, Jean, for that fantastic presentation. And I'd like to welcome Jackie Alexander to talk about architecture. Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks, Anita. I'll just try and share my screen now. Just bear with me. Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. My name is Jackie Alexander, and I'm a senior lecturer in the architecture department at Monash, but I'm also a practicing architect and a director of Alexander Sheridan Architecture. So I thought today I might talk you through my experience of what architecture is, what my career path has been like, and also use this opportunity to share with you a little bit about our architecture course at Monash, focusing on the Bachelor of Architectural Design. So what attracted me to architecture? Well, I guess I'm a pretty creative person, and I really enjoyed drawing and art subjects when I was at school. But I'm also really interested in people, culture and the world. So I wanted to work in a field where I felt like I could make a difference in other people's lives. And I think architects are really problem solvers, and we're always trying to design for a better future. And the central tenet of our job as architects is to improve the way that people live. So if those sorts of things sound like they're things that you might be interested in, then you may be interested in having a further look at our architecture course. So how can an architect create positive change? Well, this is a real and open question, and it's something that we actively try to explore and pursue at Monash Architecture. And we believe that architects should be positive change agents. So I'm going to just present a few examples of what I mean. Now, I guess there's a number of global challenges in the world at the moment that are becoming increasingly pressing and require design solutions quite urgently. Globally, there are huge population shifts from rural areas to urban areas. More people need to be accommodated in less space and fast. And there are new issues that we haven't encountered before emerging, like we've all come to know very well over the last couple of months, like the global pandemic and of course global warming. And design can really play a role in contributing to the solutions for these sorts of global challenges. A huge proportion of people who are moving to cities are living in informal settlements like this. This is Cape Town, South Africa, and you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, these are informal settlements or slums. They're not designed, they're unplanned, and they're lacking basic infrastructure and services. So this is also a design challenge that architects might look at through their work. The built environment can really change the quality of life for its inhabitants. This is Brazil, and you can see a really stark divide in wealth inequality between the people that live on the right-hand side of the screen in these towers with their luxurious pools and tennis courts, and the slums on the left-hand side of the screen. And architects can really be part of fixing these problems, or they can actually exacerbate them. And really we need to recognise that we have some agency and capacity to help in these circumstances as designers. So how can we put our skills to good use and to positive impact? Closer to home, these environments might look familiar. This is actually LA, but it could be the outer urban fringe of Melbourne or Sydney. And this is an issue of sprawl. So some of the challenges that come up in these kind of suburban environments is a lack of social connection and access to services and employment. Also, the loss of biodiversity from our cities growing larger and larger and infringing on surrounding farmland and also natural environments. And also the problem of car dependencies and long commutes for residents who live in these kinds of environments. So this is another area where architects can really focus their skills on trying to improve the lives of people that live there. So how can an architect contribute to the common good? Architects don't only design buildings, they work across scales and mediums with multiple disciplines. And some of those disciplines you can see on the right-hand side of the screens. It involves science and humanities, engineering, technology, construction, economics, art and literature, sociology, psychology. And of course, we work a lot with people to create places and experiences. Oops. So you can see here that architects work across a number of different scales, from the scale of the object to furniture, interiors, buildings, landscapes, infrastructures, precincts, suburbs, and the city. And as an architect, you're an accredited professional. So often people think that we design buildings, which is, so we certainly do, but we're often working at much larger scales and also much smaller scales as well. And you have the capacity to work in all of these sorts of design scales as an architect. I'll try to show you some examples of my work now, which might also explain how architects can help improve the lives of their clients and of citizens. So as part of my practice, I design houses primarily, and this is a house that I designed at Hanging Rock in regional Victoria when I was working with Kirsten Thompson Architects a few years ago. So the idea for this house is that it's very sensitive to landscape, and if you look out the window in my background or on the screen, you can see that there's a very important Indigenous site. It's called Hanging Rock. And so the house acts as a kind of vessel to frame views over this very significant site. But it's also designed for an extreme climate. So it's Hanging Rock is very wet in winter. There's a forest environment that surrounds the house, which you can see at the bottom of the screen. But it's also very dry and very prone to bushfires in the summertime. And as we've seen over the last 12 months, the problems of bushfires in Australia are becoming more and more extreme each year. So this is something that we really need to take into consideration as architects. On this project, I worked with clients, builders, engineers, planners, and landscape architects. So it's architecture isn't just a solo profession. You're often working with others, and if you enjoy working with people and learning from other people's expertise, it's a fantastic pursuit. And it's very collaborative, and it's really rewarding to see something that you've designed come to fruition. But architects, as I said before, architects don't just design buildings, they can also design things like interiors. So this is a series of ESOP stores that I was involved in designing. This one here is in Collins Street in Melbourne in a heritage building, which you can see at the top right there. And I guess it's the simplest and most classical way for architects to impact people, which is designing, you know, interesting and engaging spaces and buildings. We can simply design beautiful spaces for people to work and to be in, and that was exactly what the brief for this project was. So we can improve the lives of people in many different ways, and we can also think beyond buildings. As part of my practice, I'm really interested in communicating ideas about architecture to wider audiences, and I do this through a number of different media. So this includes exhibition design and installation, as well as architectural publishing. And on the left is an art installation that I made for an exhibition called Occupied. So this was a design for a loft space within a gallery, and visitors could privately book into this space via Airbnb, Rubberdesk and other kinds of digital platforms during the course of the exhibition to activate the space in very interesting and unpredictable ways. So people visiting could have strange shared interactions with the people who were effectively residing within that space. I also have been involved in architectural writing about ideas, and of course I teach. So there are lots of different possibilities for directions that you can move into with an architecture degree. So what makes the Monash Bachelor of Architecture degree different? A bit like Jean, I've got a slide here that shows our course map. So the architecture degree is a 3-year course. That's the Bachelor of Architecture, and then we have a 2-year master's program. So if you'd like to work as a professional architect, it's a 3-year bachelor plus 2-year master's. But what's quite different about the Monash course is that design, which you can see in the blue blocks here, it occupies most of your time. In the master's program, almost all of the study that you do relates to your design work. In the bachelor's program, your design studio is complemented with a number of other skills. So I'm not sure, can you see my mouse moving there if I do that? So these 2 blocks are for the first year program. So most of your time will be spent in design studio, but we also teach students how to draw from scratch. We also teach technology, which is like construction technology, to learn how buildings go together. And we learn art history and architecture history and theory. So these pink units are all of the theory units, and they are, as Jean said, really also quite important to support ideas generation in design studio. You have lots of capacity to choose the kinds of projects that you'd like to work on, and I'll go into a bit more detail on that shortly. And then in your 3rd year and up, you've got a lot of different opportunities for electives so that you can tailor and customise your degree. So I guess you're probably wondering what a design studio is. So I'll try and explain that to you. And the course does have a strong emphasis on it. So design studios are sort of model of small group teaching. There's about 16 students in every group. So this is one on the screen right here. And there's a synthesis of everything that you learn in all of the other fields of study that you do. So technology, history, communications. And the design studio is project-based. So each semester the project changes and is current and relevant to what's happening in the world. And we bring in experts, clients, collaborators, etc., according to the topic or the brief that we're looking at. So this is students at work in the design studio making a mess. This is what we like to see happening. Prototyping, testing and trying things out. And then also a really important part of this learning process is the ability to present and discuss your ideas. So you get really good at this. Architects are fantastic public speakers because they're very well trained in presenting their work regularly, which seems a bit daunting at first, but becomes much, much easier when you do it every week. There's also a strong emphasis on working collaboratively with your peers, with your friends, with staff. And as I said, there's a lot of choice in the subject matter that you can select. So you can tailor the degree to the kinds of projects you'd like to work on. And I'll show you some examples. So you could choose to undertake live projects with real clients. And this is an example of such a design studio. Students were working with an Indigenous community in Olcala in far north Queensland. And they were working collaboratively to build a new cultural knowledge centre. So they were both designing and building the project. But of course, it was really important that the Indigenous community was able to co-design that with them. And it was a really fantastic, immersive cultural experience that the students were able to have for 2 weeks studying up in Queensland. And these are some of the outcomes of the students testing proposals that they might then build in the second phase. So building what you've designed. At Monash, there's definitely an emphasis on creating space through making. And that might be model making, but occasionally it's also about making full-scale buildings and spaces. So in this example, this is in Stawell, which is in regional Victoria. And students worked collaboratively with bricklayers to basically build a floodway. So this is on a lake in Stawell that regularly floods, and the flooding is getting worse with global warming. And so they constructed this almost like a landscape out of bricks that was capable of mediating the water levels and provided a bit of a break. But also enabled the space to be used in a number of different ways depending on the water levels. So as a social space, as a picnic area and barbecue space. And they also learned a lot about the trade of bricklaying. So some very specialised skills there. And this is another example of student work that was built. So this is in the Docklands. I believe it's still there. If you ever get out down to the Docklands, take a look. It's called the Sea Light Pavilions, and it was a couple of pavilions in the Docklands for observing the stars. And this was developed in collaboration with some visiting architects from Norway. A really important component of our degrees is exhibitions. And it's part of the way that we communicate our ideas to the public, but also to industry. So this is an example of a student exhibition that was about the suburb of Elwood and different kinds of interventions that could be done in Elwood, which used to be a swamp and has since been built as a suburb, but has a capacity of, has a tendency to flood a lot. So it was looking at different kinds of architectural solutions to that problem and then communicating those ideas back to the residents of Elwood. I thought I might take this opportunity to show you some of the facilities at Monash as well, since we can't be there and we're just here virtually. But this is our Caulfield campus, our fantastic brand new library with MARTA right next to it in yellow here. Jean's office is somewhere up there. These are our architecture studio spaces. So this is where students make their work and exhibit their ideas every week. We have digital fabrication studios and laser cutting. So students can learn how to make models digitally and print models digitally, which is pretty exciting. And we start doing that in first year. But we also have things like this, like the robot, which is a way of programming a robot to create things that humans can't. So this is an example of that, this very unique brickwork wall, which is based on precise mathematics that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to create by using hand and mortar like this. So there's some really exciting things that technology can bring to architecture. And of course, community is a really important part of our degrees in architecture at Monash. This is our faculty. We're probably in there somewhere. If you look closely, where's Wally? But it's a very close-knit creative community. Every year we come together for an annual show, and there's lots of opportunities for interdisciplinary collaboration as well. We get to know our classmates very closely, and it's a way of making lifelong friends. I'm still friends with all of my cohort that I went through with 15 or 20 years ago now. But it's also an opportunity to present ideas as a group and get feedback from industry leaders and experts on what you'd like to see achieved with your projects. And of course, celebrating our achievements is also really important. So we do that often through our grad shows and our exhibitions at the end of each semester. One of the most fantastic things about studying architecture, and indeed being an architect, is exploring the world. Architecture is always influenced by the context that it exists within. That's geographical context, but also historical context, cultural context, social, political, economic context. So exploring the world is a really core aspect of becoming a good architect. And we are lucky that we have a campus in Italy called the Prato campus, which is in Tuscany. And I was very lucky personally to take this trip, take the students on this trip for 4 years. So we take our third year's students here to study for 6 weeks in the summertime, which is bellissimo, as the Italians would say. And we learn about Italian culture, food, and we even take language classes, which is pretty fantastic. There's a cooking class, and it's also a fabulous way to learn about some of the Italian masterpieces. So this is a famous Italian architect, Carlo Scarpa, and his museum in Verona. Of course, we look at the classics as well. So obviously you'd all be familiar with the Leaning Tower of Pisa. We're having a bit of fun there, posing for the camera. We also often have tours to various parts of the world. So this was a design studio in Poland, and this is part of the old town in Warsaw near the castle. And so the students went there 2 years ago. And the same semester we had a trip to Japan. So students were working with Kobe University students in Osaka, and they had a great time despite some of the language barriers, trying to work collaboratively on a design together. So unfortunately we're in lockdown at the moment, but hopefully we'll be able to do these things again fairly soon. And it's actually fantastic at the moment because we have the opportunity to collaborate with architecture schools and industry professionals from all around the world through remote learning. So still getting that international experience. What makes Monash architecture different? I would have to say it's the desire to act in and have an impact upon the world. And it's a really core philosophy at Monash. And you have the agency to choose your own path as an architect. There's many different paths that you can take, and you can really pursue your own interests. You can learn different perspectives in diverse locations. So what kind of architect will you become? I'd be interested to hear if any of you are interested in this this course, and be really happy to take your questions. And if you'd like to have a look at some more information about our degree, you can find out more at monash.edu. Thanks.
Sorry, everyone. Thank you so much, Jackie. That was a fantastic presentation. I'm always a bit regretful that I didn't study something different in my undergraduate degree. Thank you very much. We're very lucky to have Shur Ma with us today. Thank you so much, Shur, for giving up your time to talk about your study at Monash Art Design and Architecture in the Architectural Design program. I'll hand over to you if you have something. I think you've got some slides, haven't you, to share also?
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Hi everybody. I'm currently my third year of Bachelor of Architecture Design. I'm preparing to show some of the work I've done throughout the 3 years, just some simple work, and talk about my experience. So the picture showing on the cover was one of the projects I did on the first year. It's supposed to be like a house with a PLAS program. It was a really interesting project. It was the first real project I ever got to design. I was really excited about it, and I got the idea of the house from the board game Jenga, and I'm planning to explore the idea furthermore. But it was a very interesting project. So in the first semester, before we start to get into design any real project, we focus more on like the spatial sequence design. So this is one of the model I made. There were only 2 requirements for this model. One is to show the horizontal movement. Another one is you have to use the material plastic. And the material I chose was shot glasses and straw. And I kind of used the straw that creates the horizontal movement throughout the whole project. And at the end of the semester, we were asked to design this kind of cardboard model as landscape with the whole class as a group assignment. So we got paired up with another person, and we will make some this kind of model, and they're supposed to connect with the models that are around it. It was really interesting. It was like the first real experience as architect. So, and I really enjoyed to work with my peers as well, because when people have different ideas, you're really surprised to see how different each studio's outcome turned out to be. Some studios could be really like it's just a lot of stacking and square, but some studios have more curves, and our studio was kind of a combination of all kinds of, which was really interesting. And this was one of our first year project as well. This was a group assignment. We were assigned to the group that we were supposed to make a model with both glass and metal material, and the middle part here was supposed to be a 3D print object that connects both metal and glass part. We got the idea from the waves of the ocean, so we're trying to apply waves all over the model, and it was one of the projects that we did we were most proud of. Then in second year, we got to design more real life architecture with more context. This was one of the project I designed, which is a combination of a child center on the top and a drive-in food court in the bottom. I also had another studio designing an archive building, which is supposed to be located in city. And my third year project last semester was something different. I chose like a landscape architecture studio, and it's really different from what I've done before. So there's like a really wide range of studios I could choose. As Jackie's showed before, there are a lot of there's a wide ranges, and each studio could be really different. Some studio could be focusing on mapping and stuff, but some studio will actually design like a new building like this one. Yeah, so that's kind of what we did throughout like the studios this over years. And I think as an international student, when I just got into bachelor degree study, the biggest challenge I was facing was language problem, because when it comes to architecture design and like theoretical stuff, there was a lot of reading referring to architecture history subjects, and I got really confused because it was really hard for me to understand it. And there was a lot of words I don't understand, and just generally, I had no idea what they were talking about. But through talking with friends and asking help from the tutors, it got a lot better. And another thing is, I think with architecture degree, the workload is definitely way more intense than other degrees, because in real life, there will be a lot of architects and engineers and landscape architects. They all have their own job. Then a lot of people work together on one project. But when you are working on a studio design one project by yourself, you kind of gotta take all the jobs. Though we don't do research that deep, but it's a lot of work to do, and we gotta show some progress every week. As Jackie mentioned, we have presentation every week. So it's very intense and very challenging. So when it comes to that, time management is really important. That's what I found out. And socializing is different when it comes to uni, because foundation year is kind of like more like high school. You know, a lot of people have similar class with everybody go to school every day, but in uni we all have different class time. But one lucky thing about architecture is we're like a really oriented group, and we take most of the classes together at the same time. So it feels like kind of in between high school and university. I talked to a lot of people from master as well, and they have like similar opinion as me. Like Monash architecture group is like really close together. So I think it's actually really helpful as well to share your problems with others, because others may have better solution to it. Either when it comes to study problems or other problems. For example, when we are using softwares, there may be like a way easier way to do something, but you don't know. But if you talk to others may have simple way. It will save you tons of time. So some of my suggestions will be learning the softwares in advance. They will teach us in class, but the class time is really limited. Most of the time, you still need to learn by yourself. So I would definitely recommend learn softwares in advance, at least the basic ones like Photoshop, Illustrator. That's like the most basic ones, but we use them the most. And also Rhino is a model building software we're going to be using the most. So if you have time, I'd definitely recommend you to have a look at the three programs at least before you start this degree. Another suggestions I'm going to give is to get involved in the architecture industry. When it comes to that, what I'm talking about is you need to get yourself familiar with all kind of architects. For me personally, I follow a lot of Instagram pages because I do a lot of social media scrolling through every day. So it's definitely really helpful for you to see what architects do to during the process of design. And different people have different approaches. Sometimes it could actually help your design approach as well. And some of the magazines will be really good if you're not a big social media person. The one I know in Australia is called AA. It has a lot of introductions, just like a generally involved around Australia architecture. There are also a lot of other magazines you can look through, just search through internet. And some helpful sources I found throughout the years is the first one is SONA. I joined SONA in second year, and this year I'm in the SONA Monash committee, which is supposed to help students a lot. They host kind of some events that will involve both students and architects. So it's a great opportunity for international students to build connections and getting to know the architecture industry in Australia. I find it really helpful, and it's getting more and more involved in uni as well, because before I didn't know this kind of committee stuff exists until this year. And this year we actually have one student from each studio group that present each studio and give us feedback of what we could do. So I think it's getting like more and more helpful. So I definitely recommend you to have a look at that. Also, Monash offers peer mentor program. Some of my friends have applied for that to be a mentor, and they are amazing at their work. So they are definitely gonna be really helpful. The Monash Architecture Instagram page is really helpful as well. They post a lot of great work from students. So you can see what other people do and what you do, and through the comparison, you can see what you need to improve and stuff. They will also share the important information on the page as well. So it's really helpful. And the faculty emails will always share you some opportunities. Like last year, I saw this volunteer at the Denver meeting in Australia. It's like an exhibition of all kinds of designers all over the world. It was really helpful. So there will be some this kind of opportunities through our faculty email as well. That if you have mental problem, you can ask Monash counselor for help. It's really helpful as well. And the last one will be the tutors. They're always there for you, and don't be afraid of talking to them. They are all real life architects. They have a lot of experiences. They can offer you a lot of opportunities if you are close to them as well. Yeah, so that's all I want to share. Hope that's helpful.
That is so helpful. Thank you.
You're on mute.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what's happening there. Thank you very much for telling us about your experience moving from Muffy into the architecture program. So third year, you're nearly finished. And really great to hear about the ways that you manage the challenges that you talked about. And I think, you know, we have lots of skilled people within the faculty and across Monash to be able to support students as they settle into their new kind of life at Monash Art Design and Architecture. Thank you so much. I guess anybody who's, we've got a few people still hanging in there. Thank you for waiting. And for those people who'll be viewing this at another time, I think having heard those fantastic presentations, I'm sure that people are wondering, you know, what steps you need to take in order to apply and move through into Monash Art Design Architecture. So I'm going to ask Scott Knight, who is with us today, and perhaps Susanna, I'm not sure how you want to manage this together, but perhaps you could talk a little bit about the process of applying to Monash, Scott and or Susanna.
Cool, thank you so much, Anita. I think Susanna from Monash College has actually put together a few slides, so I think it's best to let her do the visual show for this. And then Susanna's a great contact for the students as well, who they probably already know. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Yes, my name's Susanna Kennedy and I'm the Careers Advisor for Monash College. Thank you very much, everybody, for your contributions today, and a special thank you to Shaw. Loved your presentation, and your advice to our current foundation year students was invaluable, so thank you very much for that. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
No.
No? Okay, let's have a look what's going on. How about now?
Not yet, I'm sorry.
Okay, let's see what's going on. No, I'm sorry guys, looks like I can't get it up. I might just have to talk to my
That's
slides.
fine. You could send it through to me, Suze. Oh, there we go.
Oh, you've got
It's
that,
actually
okay.
happening now.
Can you see it now? No?
It's a dark screen, unfortunately. It
Okay,
does say that you're
alright.
sharing your screen, but not something that we'd be.
Okay, all right. What I might do is go back to what you can see, which is that, and talk about the entry requirements and also talk about the application procedure. All right, so students will need to...
Interrupt, it's just, I'm not sure if it's the same for others, but it's a bit blurry at my end.
Okay, all right, so I don't know what's going on there. I'll just talk to my slides. So with the entry requirements for the Bachelor of Architectural Design, the overall score that students need to achieve is a 76.25%, and that is the average of 8 units of study over 2 semesters. The English average is 65%, and that's over 2 units of English. There's definitely no folio required, which is a common question I get asked. With the Bachelor of Design, the overall score is 63.25%. The English average is 65%. And again, there's no folio required. In terms of the application process, students will apply for their courses internally in their final semester of foundation year. Students are required to go onto a website, and I'll give them all of the information when the time comes. And they will be required to list up to 5 courses in order of preference. So if you're interested in the Bachelor of Design, please make sure you put that at number 1, which indicates to admissions this is the course that you want the most. And the same would apply for Bachelor of Architectural Design. If you're sure you want that the most, make sure you put it at number 1. So we usually advise students to list a dream course, a realistic course, and a backup course. You don't have to list up to 5, the choice is yours, but definitely list, as I said, a dream course, a realistic course, and a backup course. Upon release of your results, your final results, admissions will go back to your course application, your online course preference application, and assess you for your course preference. If you meet the foundation year entry requirements, that's the course that will be offered to you. If you don't meet the entry requirements for that first course, then admissions will look at your second course preference and so on. At the end of the day, you will receive 1 course offer, and it'll be for the highest course on your preference list where you meet all of the entry requirements for. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susanna. I'm wondering if we do have any questions from those who are listening, please feel free to put them in the chat. So far, we haven't had any questions, and we've had really comprehensive presentations, so it's possible that we don't have any questions at this stage. I think we're around, we've come to the end of the presentation. Thank you very much, everybody who presented today, Jean, Jackie, Shaw, and Susanna. Scott, I wondered if there's anything that you wanted to add before we finish up.
Looking forward to seeing you all studying art design and architecture, really, in the next intake period. And again, if you've got any questions, please direct them to Susanna, who'll be able to assist you, who you probably already know. So thank you very much for coming to the presentation and for everyone for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, everyone. And this ends the presentation.